I'm Dr. Jill Johnson. I've spent my entire career in education. I started in the classroom, then trained teachers, and most recently served as a high school administrator. Now I help highlight the stories, struggles, and successes in educating the next generation of content creators. Welcome to CGTV.
All right, it is really wonderful to see you. I want to just give you a little bit of information about me. So my name is Akwi Inji, and my professional background is in K-12 education, first of all. Started off as a language arts teacher at the high school level. I taught AP Lit, US Humanities. I taught freshmen a lot. I taught 1 year of sophomores. At the end of that year, I went to my principal and I said, never again. Never again. I love you all. Do we have any sophomores in the room? All right, a few of you. So it's just been a real pleasure to actually experience working with youth in a variety of different ways. So 11 years in the classroom as a high school teacher, and then I went on to communications work. As Dr. Jill indicated, I was communications director at the second largest school district in the state of Iowa, and have worked with school districts around the country. But my number one identity is as an artist. I firmly believe that everything that I do in communication strategy and public relations and marketing and branding is really under the umbrella of artist, and I'll talk with you a little bit about that in just a second. That photo that I use there is specifically used because of this. It was taken just 5 days after the derecho hit Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and essentially dismantled our entire community. Did you hear about the derecho? In 2020, fall of 2020, August 10th, fall of 2020. Derecho completely dismantled our community. We lost about 75% of our trees, 75% of our canopy. This is massive because we're actually a community that's known for our trees. And my backyard was completely demolished. This particular photo was taken when we didn't have any electricity. We hadn't had electricity for 2 weeks. I didn't have any Wi-Fi. I didn't have any phone. I didn't have a way to actually communicate with the outside world, except for by foot, because even gas stations were out of gas, and to even get to a gas station that had gas, if it was a mile away or 2 miles away, it might take you 3 hours. So we were completely cut off in the world of communication, completely cut off from the outside world, except for maybe our neighbors, our closest friends. And when I think about those days, I think about the fact that when I chose to have a photographer come to my house to take this picture, it was because I wanted to be reminded of the ways that we were all connected in that moment. Neighbors pitching up tents of food and trying to share what we had with each other. Somebody had a working hot shower that a couple of other people were able to use when they needed to. So when I think about communication and community, this is what occurs to me, and I want you to think about too. The words communicate, community, communion, commune, and communion, they all have something in common. They share the same Latin root word, and I know that this is maybe a little too small for you to read from where you are, but they share the same Latin root word, which means to share or impart or divide out. In this case, we're talking about content creation. And the purpose of that is to make common, to make common. To make as one in the context of shared vision, shared goals, shared values. So when you're thinking about being a content creator for your school or for your district, let me ask you a question. How many of you enjoy versus use? How many of you enjoy social media? Raise your hand. Looks like about half of us. Okay, I want to challenge you to think about the fact that you can design an experience with social media that does good, as Dr. Jill said earlier, and that is also something you truly enjoy. We know that there are benefits, and then there are parts of social media that drain our mental health. We know that, right? You are equipped with the tools and the creativity that you need to design an experience with social media that you not only enjoy, but that does good in the world. So, one of the ways that we use communication and create content is to push information out. right? We push information out, but also we need to remember to pull people in with story. Those are the two primary ways our brains process information. Is this information that I need to know, or is there a story being told to me that resonates in some specific way? And it's often a balancing act. Feels like hard news and soft news if you're in the world of journalism. How many of you know those two terms, soft news and hard news? Journalism. Okay, a couple of people. Soft news, hard news. All right. Another way of thinking about that is that we're constantly creating content that engages the heart and engages the brain, right? Engages the heart and engages the brain. For example, when we say to somebody via social media, kindergarten roundup, or FAFSA night, FAFSA information night, or college readiness night is November 16th, 7 p.m. at Washington High School. We're telling people where it is, when it is, and who it's for. But we don't often tell them why. And the why relates to emotion, to the heart, right? We understand that you might be anxious about, nervous about, excited about. Connect with us in this particular place at this particular time. All right, so let me give you an example, the traditional introduction in terms of how we can engage people more authentically with story. I can guarantee you that if you are tired of the way you tell your story, your audience is also tired of the way you tell your story, okay? It's not because it's not a story worth telling, it's because of the way we're telling it. So a specific example in my life, 2016, I had just won a really prestigious award. It was a fellowship that a handful of people get each year. And there was a massive group in the room working through 2 days in one weekend with a company based out of New York who had come specifically to use this opportunity to find one person whose project they would fund. And so there were a group of us, and we needed to stand out. I needed to stand out. I wanted to be the one person who they would possibly choose to fund. And as we're introducing ourselves around the room, it's that traditional icebreaker, all right? Help me out with this. We're going to start off with an introduction, and I want to go around the room, and I want you to tell us your name, where you're from, and what's typically the third thing? Your name, where you're from, and one interesting thing about you, maybe? Let's go with that, right? One interesting thing about you. All right. So that's the intro. That's the icebreaker. And we're going around the table, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, all right, the one thing that I used to say that was interesting about me, this is how I would respond to that. Hi, my name is Akwi Inji. I'm from Iowa. The one interesting thing about me is that I grew up in Cameroon when I was a kid. That is literally not interesting anymore because it's the 2020s. And the world is so connected and so small, really, right? We're from all over the world. And so as I was sitting there in my seat trying to anticipate what I might say that would actually gain attention, it got to me and I stood up and this is what I said. Hi, my name is Akwi Inji. I'm from Cedar Rapids. When I was 6 months old, my mom and dad hightailed it with me to Cameroon where my dad was from. As soon as we got there, my dad handed my mom a list of 100 names and 100 phone numbers. And he said, if I go missing, start at the top and work your way down. And then I just sat down. What do you think happened? Can you speak up a little bit so I can hear you? Because I need some responses to that. What do you think happened? A lot of questions, yes. Like what? What are some questions? Did my dad ever go missing? What else? How far down the list did we have to go? What else? Why only 100 names? Why not 200, right? What else? There are a list of questions that automatically start to generate in your mind. And this is why. Because that story creates intrigue. Suddenly, everybody in that room was like, wait, what happened? Wait, what did she say? Wait, did I just hear that correctly? And then the brain starts to ask a bunch of questions. And I sat down, and the rest of the people in the room started to like wake up, and there was a little bit of, oh my gosh, wait, what? And then they'd forgotten what they were going to say. Now, during the first break, what do you think happened? I can hear it. Say it again, louder. People came up and asked me about it. During the first break, people in the room came up and were like, they wanted to know more. Lo and behold. And that group from New York, instead of me doing the uncomfortable thing of going up to them and being like, hi, I'm Akwi, it's so nice to meet you, right? Instead of me having to do that, I created intrigue that brought them, magnetized them to me. Now, how does this apply in the work that you do? So that small line says, leave them wanting more, asking questions, and with a path to reach you. When we think about how we use this in the work that we do for our schools, content platforms and a hook that reels them in. All right, so maybe you could post. You have some story. Let me back up a second. Typically, when we tell stories, we go from start to finish. We try to give people everything, right? And we typically do it in chronological order. So that little 15 seconds of information that I just shared with you about my family and my life gives you a wealth of information. Suddenly you know that I spent time in Cameroon. Suddenly you have a sense that my dad must have, like, what did my dad do? Did anybody have that question? What was my dad involved in, or what did he do, right? That would even indicate that he'd be in that kind of danger, right? So your brain starts to automatically question. It's the same thing that happens when we see a crash on the side of the road. Our brain wants to know how it started and how it's going to end. This is science, okay? Our brain wants us to know how it started and how it ends because we see it in this particular middle moment, right? So the charge to you, the call to action to you is as you're thinking about the ways that you tell stories, identify a middle moment. Doesn't have to be tragedy, doesn't have to be dramatic. Identify a middle moment, a transition point, something that makes somebody go, oh, interesting. I wonder what came before that and what came after that. So let's say you're doing a student profile of somebody. Choose a middle moment with just a portrait of that person. You can use that as your social media content. And then the way that I like to do this is pull them into something else. Is there a newsletter that your school or your school district will be pushing out later that week that can tell the full story? Or is this a series of social media posts that you can create? Here's the middle mark. Here's the middle point. And then you create a series of content that pulls people into the story that you're telling about a student or about a teacher, about an experience. Does that make sense? And so crossing around through different platforms, maybe you point them to, through your social media post, you point them to a newsletter, or you point them to a longer blog, or you point them to something else that tells a fuller story. And then maybe, depending on your school, that fuller story points them to, hey, if you want to know more about X, Y, or Z, or the activities that this student was involved in that helped them achieve their goals, keep an eye out in your inbox or in your mailbox for, if it's a mailbox, a postcard with a QR code that links to more information, as an example. So trying to get people to sort of connect the dots with you through different platforms. So hook, reel them in. All right. Mirror your target audience. How many of you have heard of stories being essentially either mirrors or windows? Anybody? Okay. Stories are either mirrors or windows. Meaning if we're telling a story about a person or an experience or a program or activity, it either mirrors something that your audience has also experienced, or it's a window into a new world for your audience. So knowing that stories are really either one of those two things, or typically a combination of them, but balancing one more than the other, is something to keep in mind. So when we're thinking about our target audience, it's important to show stories that mirror that target audience. For instance, if you want freshmen to attend a certain event, are you going to profile seniors? Probably not. Unless you can do it, you're probably going to profile freshmen, unless you can do it in a way that brings that senior into a moment when they were a freshman, right? Recalls a moment and a memory when they were a freshman, and then in that way you can potentially mirror the freshman that you're trying to attract. So I'll give you an example of how I played this out at one of the school districts that I worked with. So that particular school district is the most ethnically diverse district in the state of Iowa. And when I arrived, I was charged with creating a campaign, a brand identity and campaign that the entire school district, staff, students, families, and the broader community would all resonate with. And when I got there, I saw that this was generally what the student population and the staff population looked like. But our brand identity, our visuals, and our audioscape were really designed for an audience that was more like this. And I was like this. And so I got to work. And I started searching and searching and searching for the stories about the school district that were going to be most authentic to who they'd been in the past and aspirational to who they wanted to be. And I discovered details like 2 of the most recent valedictorians from the 2 high schools there had both gone on with full ride scholarships to Ivy League schools. I discovered that from this school district, both Nicole Hannah-Jones and Dan Gable graduated. Anybody know Dan Gable? Anybody know that name? Dan Gable, Dan Gable. Okay. Gold medalist, Olympian, probably the greatest Olympic wrestler in the world, I would say. Graduated from this school district, right? So we've got Pulitzer Prize winners. We've got Olympic champions graduating from this school district. What story are we telling? And I also knew that this particular school district, the energy of this district was bold. So I needed a bold sound, a bold aesthetic, and a bold approach to how we told the stories. Now, the next few things that I'm going to share with you, I want you to think about this. This is specifically tailored and customized for one school district. You have the same ability to think about the tools and ideas that I'm sharing with you, to apply them to your specific school. Each school district, each community has its own identity, has its own authentic identity. And so really, it's a powerful opportunity for us to really think through what that identity, that culture is, and then replicate it in the way that we tell the stories of that culture, whether it's a school district or a school or a community. So I knew that I needed to take a bold approach with this particular project. And I enlisted the support of a music producer and sound engineer and videographer who's known around the country for doing a variety of different work, but he's based in this community. And he's a beloved person in the community. So I thought, okay, I'm going to collaborate. Teamwork makes the dream work. I took that to all right, here's my A team. Teamwork makes the dream work. This guy is part of my A team. So we went out and we shot video. And what we created was an anchor video that reflected the authentic nature and culture of the school district. This video, because it's customized to the school district, isn't necessarily going to fly in every community, and that's the point. Now, I've done work like this with school districts with all different types of identities. There's one school district where that student population was primarily or predominantly Hispanic. That brand identity looks and sounds very different. Another school district that's about 400 students, rural Iowa. My grandfather was a farmer in this town, okay? My family is a family that farms. And that brand identity looks very different. So customizing what you do and the content that you create to truly reflect your school's unique identity is what I'm encouraging you to consider. This particular video includes a variety of bits and pieces of factual information about the school district. Gives a visitor, if somebody were to scan a QR code that links them to this video, gives a visitor an example of what our school district is all about. What do we value? What's our energy level like? And it includes information like the Waterloo Career Center. That's really a center designed to help students explore all kinds of things, manufacturing, culinary arts, plumbing, that actually inspired a student to become a scuba diver in Costa Rica, okay? So even that little clip of information is included in the video. When you hear the line, turn plumbing into scuba diving, it's because we have a full story to tell about that particular phrase. And that's the case with each of these. So each little phrase that you hear gave us an opportunity to then blow it up into a full story on social media. Hey, you may have heard that video. You may have questioned, what was that about? Plumbing into scuba diving? Oh, remember we created intrigue already, right? So the video creates intrigue. Now they're wondering about plumbing and scuba diving. Well, here's the full story. Ashley, through her plumbing classes, decided that she really enjoyed working with her hands, enjoyed working with water, and now she's a professional scuba diver in Costa Rica. You want to sign up for plumbing classes now all of a sudden, right? Like, that's what I would want to do. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a little bit of that before we go into this video.
No one else is like us. No one else dreams like us, competes like us, changes the world like us, like turns sweat into Olympic gold medals like us, like turns pen and paper into Pulitzer Prize like us. Nicole Hannah-Jones like us, Dan Gable like us, like turns a dribble down court, jump shot, sneakers and sneaky courts into international basketball champions like Sahara Williams like us. No one turns plumbing into scuba diving, nursing into life-saving, world-changing, gonna be what we wanna be when we grow up like us. Start now, start here, like us, like us, like us. No one else dreams like us. Like us, for them, from kindergarten to graduation, caps and gowns, they all wear crowns. Kings and queens of their destiny, their dreams. Yes, yes, this is us. Courageous, ambitious, strong, we motivate, innovate, turn frustration into fuel, fear into fearless, support, guide, lead our community, each other, to be more of what you see. See this, see us, be us. Be confident, be compassionate, be dreamers and doers, be roll up your sleevers, be here, be heard, be you. Be you. With us, your future is now. Your future is here. Be bold.
All right. Right? Wanted to get people energized about Waterloo Community School District. One of the coolest things I appreciated is when we were just on the verge of rolling this video out, I sent it to one of my friends and I wanted her feedback, and she started playing it off of her phone, and her 6-year-old came out of his bedroom. Again, I'd created intrigue. He came out of his bedroom hearing the audio and he was like, wait, what are you listening to? Like, he was excited. He wanted to learn more, right? So that video, we shot it in a couple of days. The underwater content was shot on an iPhone. We didn't even get in the water. Cal and I didn't get in the water. We got the swimmers and the divers involved. We handed Cal's iPhone to one of the swimmers, and he sort of told her what to do, and the magic was worked with her, right? Check your iPhone situation. Don't be just submerging your iPhones in water without making sure that you've got the right stuff. So it's accessible. It's accessible. So as you know, there's so much power in the phones that are right there in your hands, right? One of the things that we wanted to make sure that people felt about that video was not only energy, but authenticity. I don't know if you caught the clip with the teacher who had his sleeve up to show some of his tats. Did anybody catch that? He was working with a student. That's okay if you didn't catch it. The funny thing to me is that I asked that teacher, we had a whole list of teachers who knew ahead of time that they were going to be invited to be in this video and the day and the time that we were going to shoot. And he was one of them. And so he came dressed with a sweater that covered his arms because he wanted, again, to look professional, quote unquote professional. Now, that teacher, that social studies teacher, also happens to be one of the most beloved teachers in the district. One of the most professional, expert teachers, probably in the state, right? And I specifically chose him not only because of that, his expertise, and because he's well-loved, but because he lives his authentic self. I wanted the tats in the video. And so when he came with his sweater, covering his tats, I'm like, oh man, we gotta like push him up just a little bit, let those tattoos sneak out just a little bit, because I wanted to ensure a level of authenticity. And it can also be professional. So, considering shelf life, one of the reasons that I like using that approach to a video is because, number one, it's actually more aligned with what young people want to see. It's more aligned with the real REEL, real content. It's more aligned with TikTok. It's more aligned with that fast-paced, sort of raw footage that youth want. It's not polished. That's intentional. It's not polished, right? It's not a high-polished, high-production value marketing piece. So I wanted to also think about creating a format where it's sort of plug and play. Any of those clips could be extracted out, and then another clip can be replaced, and another clip can replace it based on a student that's maybe matriculated out of the system, or a staff member who's no longer in the system, right? So it can be easily manipulated for several years' worth of content there. And then we improvised a little bit. Yes, we went in with a script. Yes, we went in with an idea of what we were looking for, but we also absolutely improvised, and we wanted to be authentic. The magical sequence, one of the things that I always like to ensure people remember is that this is truly a magical sequence. Captivate, get people's attention, in other words, influence their way of thinking, and then that transforms their behavior. So when you're talking about the content that you're creating, hopefully you're thinking about what's the purpose of that content, right? What do you want people to do once they've engaged with that content? Do you want them to be curious about a program or an experience or a project and want to be involved? Do you want them to be enticed to do research about something else? So what's the call to action really that you're trying to engage them with to transform their behavior, get them from point A to point B? So this is just a couple of other ways that we chose to really tell our stories authentically. This is just Canva, super easy. But we asked students and staff members and then eventually parents, what's your bold? Because we wanted to identify what it meant to be bold. That was our call to action. So what's your bold? My bold is standing up for the silent. My bold is coming to class every day happy. My bold is treating everyone nicely and being passionate about kindness. This student's primary language was not English, and so we emphasized his primary language visually on this document and then put the little bit of English there at the very, very bottom, which you can hardly read, and that was intentional. And then other staff members and students. So really giving an opportunity for each of them to have their voices heard in terms of what they thought bold was. And recycling this content in a variety of different ways on social media. So this was a poster, or a social media post first as a graphic. And then we turned them into posters and delivered them to the classroom, life size. This teacher was like, oh my gosh, it's bigger than me. But one of the things that I wanted to draw your attention to is 14,414 total reaches over the course of a very short amount of time with that particular post. Another example of authentic voices, authentic story, and authentic auditory experiences. And I know I'm running just a little bit out of time here, but I'm going to share a couple of these with you. The first is, so this is a campaign that we did for the HR department. I don't know how many of you work with like different departments in your school to help them tell their stories, but for this particular situation, this was the HR department of the district. And this was one version.
At Waterloo Schools, we're hiring humans. You heard that right. We care about you as a human, not just an employee. And if you care about others, you like to celebrate wins and work as a team and want to feel appreciated for who you are, then join us. Competitive pay and amazing benefits are available right here and right now in positions throughout our district. It takes all kinds of amazing, hardworking people to support our students and help them achieve their dreams. Join us, where we care about you as a human. Apply at waterlooschools.org. With us, your future is now.
All right, and then I said, you know what? Let's try a different soundscape. So this one is the exact same visual, exact same script, different soundscape.
At Waterloo Schools, we're hiring humans. You heard that right. We care about you as a human, not just an employee. And if you care about others, you like to celebrate wins and work as a team and want to feel appreciated for who you are, then join us. Competitive pay and amazing benefits are available right here and right now in positions throughout our district. It takes all kinds of amazing, hard-working people to support our students and help them achieve their dreams. Join us, where we care about you as a human. Apply at waterlooschools.org. With us, your future is now.
All right. So what we did with that, so we created both versions, and then we pushed both versions out on social media, and we asked people to tell us which one they preferred. Talk about engagement. People love for their perspective to be part of the process, right? So in what ways can you create version 1, version 2, version A, version B? Here are 2 versions to some story, some concept. And then just ask your people, do you have a preference? That engagement is massive when you ask people what they enjoy, what their preference is. So think about how you can incorporate that particular tactic in a variety of ways that you work. And then engaging all voices. So this is the last example. I mentioned the Waterloo Career Center. One of the programs that this center offered was coding and digital security. And it's blowing up. These students have won national awards at national level competitions. And one of the calls to action for this program was, hey, we want to get more students involved in this. Particularly, we want to get English language learners involved in this. So I brought in Obed. And Obed and I worked a little bit on some audio content. And this is what emerged from this is the radio ad that emerged from our interview together.
Waterloo Schools just built a state-of-the-art classroom specifically to teach students a new cybersecurity course. Our cybersecurity students travel across the country to compete and win in those national competitions. Talk about bold. It's a collegiate-level academic experience, and our students in the Cedar Valley can have it tuition-free right here at the Waterloo Career Center. Students just like Obed.
My name is Obed, and my bold is saving the world from hackers.
Obed started as a young student in our English language learner program, and now he's a senior eager to save the world from hackers through cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity does not care about the perfect English or language. What cybersecurity cares about is the willingness to want to learn and having the heart to protect.
Do you have a middle or high school student in your life? What's their bold? Help them find it at the Waterloo Career Center. Give us a call at 319-433-1803 to schedule your visit at the WCC. Okay. Again, that number is 319-433-1803. Right. With us, the future is now.
So you can use audio content in a variety of ways. Obviously, you don't need to use it in a radio station. But you can create audio content and pair it with visuals in a really specific and unique way with your social media content. And then the last thing is, we always hear trust your crazy ideas. I like to think of it as trust your creative ideas. Every single one of you has an incredible vault of creative ideas and ways that you could approach content strategy and content creation. And I would just invite you to take that charge and think about the ways that you can get creative about your own content strategy. Thank you so much for the time that you're spending this morning with each other and the work that you do to elevate your schools and the work that those teachers and staff and your colleagues and peers do. Thank you.